Hello, welcome. In this video, I'm going to help any newbies to Reason get started. I'm going to keep this video under 20 minutes and try to show you everything that you know to get started with recording instruments with inside Reason, as well as any audio, whether you want to use a guitar or record vocals. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to click on, and I'm going to start my stopwatch, and I'm just going to go to demo mode. And this way, what I have show up here will be similar to what you have if you're using Reason for the first time. Before we even get into the interface and instruments, we need to set up your audio interface, and to do that, you want to go to the Edit, and at the very bottom you have Preferences. This is where you're going to access a lot of your basic settings within Reason. So click on the Audio tab, Audio card driver. This is where you're going to choose the audio interface that you're using, and just clicking on that down arrow, you should see yours available within this list if it has not already defaulted to that audio device. And so you just choose it and you should have a green check, and that means that it's been recognized and you should have audio input for recording as well as output. The sample rate, for simplicity's sake, let's just keep that at 44.1. This is going to be limited to whatever your audio interface is capable of doing. The buffer size, if you're going to be using a MIDI keyboard, then you want to have this as low as possible. I do not have a MIDI keyboard connected, and I'm using the hardware on my laptop, so mine is very, very high right now. This also, the higher the samples you have set here, then the less intense it's going to be on your processor. The lower, the more intense. So if you are playing audio and you get crackling and noise in the audio, then raise your buffer size. But you typically won't have a problem with that unless you have lots and lots of instruments and effects loaded. But just know that you can move the slider and lower the rate, or lower the buffer size and raise it here. And I'm just going to keep mine high because I don't have an audio interface connected. So if you have a MIDI keyboard, you should have plugged that into your USB port and turned it on before starting Reason. You can go to Control Surfaces, hit Auto Detect Surfaces. Reason will then perform a search and find any MIDI controllers connected to your computer. So we've got audio, we've got your MIDI controller. Close there. So you want to play a piano. Okay, you can get to all of the instruments within Reason through the browser. Just be sure Instruments is selected here. If you choose Effects, you have a different group of devices that become available. Utilities, again, other devices. But we want a piano, so let's choose Instruments. I just happen to know that the NNXT sampler has a piano, so I'll double click there. And if you want to get rid of an instrument that you brought in, just hit delete and delete all in group, and it's gone. And I did that to also show that you can just drag the piano patch over and it loads. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to get rid of the browser. To close your browser, press F3. Okay, since I do not have a MIDI controller connected, I'm going to use the on-screen piano keys that comes with Reason. In order to use those, I press F4, and it is now on the screen, and I should be able to play the piano. Okay, so as simple as that, we've got an instrument loaded and we're playing. If you would like to record, the record button is here. You can also hit the asterisk on the numeric keypad. So let's go ahead and record something. You know that the MIDI focus is on the instrument you want to record by this arrow here, this gray arrow and the blue icon, whatever you want to call it there. If I were to choose that, you see it's gone now. And it's still playing because these aren't instruments, but you typically want to be sure that you've got that there to be sure that any playing on your MIDI controller will be directed to that instrument. So to record, I'm going to hit the asterisk on the numeric keypad, or you can just click record. Spacebar to stop. Spacebar will play and pause or stop, just the same as with any other DAW. And to get back to the beginning of where I recorded, I'm going to hit 0 on the numeric keypad, and I'll hit that again. Spacebar. And I'm going to go ahead and get the on-screen piano keys off by pressing F4. If you'd like to do some editing of the MIDI information within the sequencer, let's maximize the sequencer. Pressing F7 will maximize, and now you've got a clear display to work with your audio and MIDI. If the clip is selected, you see it's deselected here. If it's selected, you can just press enter, and now you are in the editor, and you can have access to the individual notes. You can then move these up and down, forward and back. The movement forward and back is going to be based on your snap position. Mine is set to 1/16. You can click there and change. If you'd like to turn snap off, you can press the S key on your keyboard. You see, it's now. Also, if when you're recording you would like a click track, you can press C. I just press C. Down here on the transport, you can see click is now highlighted. C again, it's off. So, pressing the spacebar, you can hear that it is now active, the click. And I'm going to press C to turn it off again. So, when you are selecting MIDI notes or clips in general in the editor or the sequencer, above you have the inspector. This shows the position of whichever MIDI note you're selecting. It changes. It will also show the length, the note, and the velocity. Velocity is down here below. And I'm just going to hit escape, and that will take you out of the MIDI editor. Okay. One other note is this is still selected, so I'm going to press enter, come back into the editor. You can select a note and resize the end or the front. I'm going to press escape, close that editor. Now, you want to record a vocal or a guitar. Pressing Control T will then add an audio track. Then, to the left you see in. Press that. You can choose between mono or stereo. If you're recording guitars, it's going to be stereo. If you are recording guitar, Reason also comes with a tuner. So if you press this here, then you've got a tuner and you can play into it, and this display will then tell you how much you need to adjust to get into tune. Click it again and it turns off. And then just know that you can change into stereo input if you'd like, just simply by choosing here. Going back to mono, the track is already armed. Whenever you move to another track, it automatically arms for recording. This is for recording the MIDI information. This is for recording the audio data. This here is for automation. So automation is automatically armed as soon as you select a track as well. And you have your monitor button here, mute and solo, mute and solo. Okay, so let's go back to the rack by pressing F6. Say you want to change the patch. Just simply select Browse Patch, the folder here, the browser will open up and go to the NNXT sampler patches. Here, you say you'd like an organ. You can double click and you've got different organs here that you can load. And double clicking, F4 to bring up my on-screen keys. Okay, and there you are. One thing to note with Reason, there are several different places, because this could be confusing, where you can adjust that everything is tied together. So if I F7 and go to the sequencer, here we have our organ, and I've got my MIDI information recorded. And I want to loop this. One handy set of keys that you can use is Control L, and that will set the loop locators left and right to the clip that you have selected. And pressing L will turn the loop on here. L turns the loop function on and off. I'm going to make this clip smaller, and Control L. The loop is on by pressing L. I'm going to start this. F6 to get back to the rack. Now within Reason, every instrument has a mix device. And actually I don't want to hear that because it sounds awful, but this mix device, they're created whenever you create the instrument. And I'm going to expand that by clicking this arrow here. You can control volume here for the squelchy organ. There's the master volume that's on each instrument as well. Also the mixer, which we'll get to by pressing F5, you can control the fader here. So typically you'd want to keep the mix channel device at 0 dB. I don't adjust that. And you can return the fader to the default position just as in most other DAWs by control clicking. And now we're back to 0 dB. In this way you can F5, go to the mixer, to your squelchy organ, and then make your level adjustments using the fader here. Okay. The mixer here, it can seem a bit daunting initially, but just know that each strip is essentially the same thing. For whatever audio track or instrument track that you create, it's going to be the same thing over and over. So once you learn one strip, then you're going to know them all. But at the top you have input gain, then you have your dynamics section for compression or gate here. You have EQ, this section here, your insert, channel insert, send effects, and your fader. In the beginning you may want to hide some of this so you don't feel so overwhelmed. These buttons here will hide. So if I click there, EQ, effects, dynamics, inserts, all that I'm left with is a fader. So you may want to just start here when you're learning Reason and just getting started, and then turn on the inserts and then start working with the inserts and learning those. Turn the dynamics on, effects, EQ, and the input. Okay, so with effects, if you want to say add some reverb to your piano, let's F6 and go to the rack. Actually, from the mixer you could, remember you've got instruments here. If you'd like an effect, you can choose effect, and let's choose a reverb. I'm going to choose the RV7000. You can drag that to the squelchy organ and apparently that doesn't work. Let's F6 and go to the squelchy organ. Be sure you highlight it. I'm going to go ahead and drag, and then now I'm going to F4, bring up the on-screen keys. Take some of that down. You now have reverb on your in an XT. And this brings me, I'm going to F4 and close the on-screen keys, and this brings me to another point, which is the audio routing. When you drag that effect onto the instrument, it's going to automatically route. But if you ever want to do your own manual routing within Reason, just press the tab key, and it will spin around, and you have cables here, which you can then manually route. Just by clicking and holding, you can drag and move it wherever you'd like. But that's a bit further down the road. Just in the beginning, if you're just starting out, I would use the automatic routing that Reason does. Okay, so let's see. Now, say you have a song recorded and you want to bounce down. You'd simply go to File here, and then Export Song as Audio File. And this is grayed out because I'm using the demo version, but you would simply click that, and then you'll have the option of bit depth and a few other items, which should be self-explanatory, and you've got your song. You want to be sure that in the sequencer, and we'll go there by pressing F7, that you have your end locator set to or actually you want to be sure when you hit export, you'll have the option to choose between left and right locators. So you want to be sure that you have your left and right locator set to the area that you are exporting. If you're using reverb as we are, you'd probably want to have the right locator set a bar or two behind so that you can catch the tail of that reverb. Okay, and we're almost out of time here. I'm at essentially 18 minutes. I just would like to cover one other thing, browsing patches. So let's go to F6 and to our squelchy organ. And actually, let's load another instrument here. So we click on Instruments. I'm going to choose a synth. So I'm going to choose the Maelstrom. Remember, you can drag over. Press F4 for my on-screen keys. And I'm in business. So choosing patches, you want to be sure that this area here is highlighted in orange and that this is also orange up here. This way I can use my up and down arrow keys on my keyboard. Paying attention here, I can hit up and I'm on my next sound. Okay. Okay, and that's how you browse. You can double click there, go to pads. I'll double click and load the area additive. Arrow down with the down arrow key. Down. Okay, and it's as simple as that. Now, in the last few seconds here, I'm going to cover a couple of things in the mixer here. I'm going to F3 and close the browser. Your tools, These essentially correlate to the QWERTY keys on your computer keyboard. So the arrow key is Q, pencil is W, E is eraser, R is racer, T is mute, Y is the magnifying, and U is the hand. So just remember the QWERTY on your computer keyboard is going to correspond to the tools. So I'm going to Q and go back to the arrow, and I am out of time. That's 20 minutes. So I'll stop here, and maybe I'll do a part 2 and go a bit more into depth of some of the features. But I think that what we've got done here should cover pretty much everything to get you started with recording MIDI and audio within Reason. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you made it all the way to the end, and look out for a part 2 where I'll go into more features. Alright, thanks, bye.